Hi folks, we are live on the Devserver, and as I'm recording this, by the way, the War Thunder annual sale is currently live. So huge discounts on everything in the game. If you end up picking something up off of the web store during the sale, make sure to use my affiliate link down in the description. You get a cool decal and you support the channel, so win-win for everybody. Anyway, we are currently looking at the AH-56A Cheyenne. This is going to be a squadron vehicle attack helicopter in rank 6 at battle rating 9.7 for the Americans, with a relatively good maximum speed. You can pause if you want to take a longer look at that stat card. There are a couple of things I want to show you in the hangar before we go into the air. First of all, take a look at the targeting optics. Only a 12x optical zoom. Not the most impressive. However, it does get FLIR. That's a thermal imager for the targeting system. That is a big deal. If you're not familiar with like some of the helicopter stuff, getting the thermal imager is like moving up to a stabilized gun with the tanks. It's kind of a big deal, and you're going to see the difference in a minute once I get this into a flight. Now for weapons, we have two different gun systems on this thing. The first is going to be this 40mm M129 grenade launcher out in the nose, and the second is going to be this 30mm XM140 cannon mounted down under the chin. Now, I've got sort of mixed feelings about these guns because the ammo you get for both of them is just the generic American high-explosive anti-tank rounds. Now, for me, these have really sort of mixed results. Against tanks, I generally get more like superficial damage. You know, these are really great at like track and barrel torture. The only things I can usually kill with these are going to be like lighter vehicles, like a BMP or something. You know, if you get a sustained burst into a proper tank from like above and behind, you might be able to get a kill. But generally for me, these are just causing, damage and repair cycles for an assist. Maybe you have better luck with them than I do. I don't know. Moving on to the main weapons, we've got Mighty Mouse rockets in varying quantities there. You can take quite a few of those. And we have the BGM-71C improved tow missiles. Now, these aren't necessarily, the best anti-tank missiles in the game. Again, BR 9.7. They only have an effective range of like 3.5 kilometers. I know it says 3.75 on the stat card, but realistically, you want to try and fire them within about 3.5. And they do have relatively good accuracy, especially combined with the thermal imager. So at this BR, these are going to be relatively effective, with a little bit of practice, and you get 6 of them. So that's no joke. Anyway, let's get this thing up into the air and see what it can do. Okay, so we are up in the Cheyenne attack helicopter with its retractable landing gear. Always good to see. And the first thing I want to show you is the guns. They are not both zeroed onto the CCIP. You can see there one of them is actually firing sort of in the direction of my reticle there. The other is just sort of shooting off into the distance. So hopefully they fix that before the patch goes live. Otherwise it's going to be really annoying and kind of dumb to have multiple weapons that share a trigger button, but do not share a point of aim or a targeting reticle, with your weapon system. That's kind of silly. Hopefully they fix that. Now, the next thing I want to show you, of course, the tow missiles have the thermal sights. So that's going to be kind of a big deal. And of course, we have the sight stabilization for the tow missiles. So that's going to make actually hitting your targets a lot easier once you find them. If you don't have experience with helicopters at different BRs, if you've only flown like some of the entry-level stuff and all that, take my word for it that let me see if I can turn around there. That the thermal sights really do make a difference. So without the targeting dots, right, if I'm looking at that field, I might not necessarily see anything. And even if I zoom in, like these targets are still kind of hard to spot, especially if we're moving. But with the thermals, they all stick out like a sore thumb. I mean, it really is like a night and day sort of a game-changing feature. It's like gun stabilization on tanks. Like, you know, once you get that feature, like, you get kind of spoiled by it. And you definitely notice when you're in a vehicle that doesn't have it. Now, I want to sort of bring your attention to something else here. We don't have any countermeasures. Combined with the relatively short range on the tow missiles, I think that's going to pretty seriously impact the survivability of the Cheyenne here. This is going to be very vulnerable to, like, machine guns, like rooftop machine guns, and like armored personnel carriers with 30mm cannons and auto cannons and stuff like that. Because you're going to have to get close in order to hit with the tow missiles. And without countermeasures, you're going to be bait for, you know, any sort of surface-to-air missiles that you get tiered into, or even like AIM-9Bs on low-flying aircraft. So, despite everything else, I think that this is going to have some survivability issues. Now, the saving grace, maybe, is the flight performance. Take a look at the speed there. Now, I'm not really even trying, and I'm pushing 380 kilometers an hour in this thing. It's just fast. And if they retain this flight model once the patch goes live, like, the agility and flight performance on the Cheyenne here is really going to be a standout feature. This thing is just excellent to fly. And, like, look at that turn. We can pull some really good maneuvers out of this thing, you know, thanks to the stub wings. And I think that's going to make a pretty big difference when it comes to, you know, the overall utility of this helicopter. Maybe, screwing up my aim. You know, maybe the survivability in terms of, like, incoming fire isn't necessarily going to be very high, but maybe the survivability in terms of, like, avoiding being fired at might not be as bad, since you're going to be able to sort of maneuver this thing around relatively easily. I don't know. We'll see. You know, all of this is on the dev server. It's all subject to change, but make sure you are subscribed to the channel so that when the patch goes live, you can check out my full review of this helicopter. And of course, shameless plug, if you're going to get anything from the web store during the annual sale, don't forget to use my affiliate code down in the description. You get a discount and a decal. As always, thanks for watching.